Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. It's Way T Lightheart from Bioptimizers with another edition of the Awesome Health Podcast. And I am really excited about this particular topic because it's something that comes up over and over and over. There are women and couples, but particularly we're going to focus on the woman side of things today, dealing with infertility. Infertility rates, as many of our listeners know, have skyrocketed. And it's a huge problem. We see a lot of the information that's coming is coming primarily out of the medical community, and it's not addressing some of the fundamental causes. And today, ladies and gentlemen, we have an expert who not only reversed her own infertility, but has helped a lot of people. And she's on a mission to get 100,000 women pregnant. If I said that, I would be in big trouble. If she says it, we're okay. So the good news is our guest today, Kela Smith, who is the CEO and program director of the Hormone Puzzle Society, a women's health club for fertility, hormones, and the business of coaching. She is also one of the coaches at the society. Kela works with women who are struggling with infertility and hormone imbalance and coaches them to get pregnant naturally and eliminate symptoms of hormone imbalance. Kela brings over 20 years of experience as a professional fitness trainer, wellness educator, and author. To date, she has published multiple books on fertility and hormones, as well as 4 distinct online courses. We'll talk about those in a minute. She holds 4 different qualifications as a certified holistic health coach and a wellness coach. And of course, she realized her dream of creating a virtual holistic health and wellness practice and helps women all over the world solve these issues. As the creator of the Hormone Puzzle method, Kela helps her clients learn how to cycle sync. Get that, cycle sync. I'm excited about that. I want to know what a synced cycle is. So they have pleasant periods, boosted fertility, happy hormones, hotter sex lives, and greater creativity, productivity, and well-being at work. Kela, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Wade. Wow, what an introduction.
Well, I mean, this is an awesome topic to get involved with. Before we get into your story, I think I want to touch on the emotional and psychological stress that women generally now are getting married or thinking about children, certainly a lot different than, say, my parents did back in the day, where it was quite common people were married in their late teens and early 20s and had a family well established before they're 25. And now with all the options available to women, the use of birth control, which has been, wasn't really available till the 60s, and widespread use and all these sort of things, and women taking on bigger roles in careers and all this sort of stuff. It's really put a tremendous amount of pressure on women. Mm-hmm. And, they get to their 30s and all of a sudden, they've been working on their education and their career and they're kind of tracking up. And then all of a sudden this big baby, I want to have a baby. Mm-hmm. I'm running out of time. Where for us guys, we're a little bit, we don't have to get our crap together as fast as women, right?
Right.
It's the unfair component of being a woman relative. If you look at 2 people entering the workforce, 2 people entering the education force, 2 people getting into a relationship, the biology of a woman puts a significant more amount of pressure. Would you agree with that?
For sure. Yes. Definitely.
So talk to me how you dealt with this in yourself, because you have a very interesting story. And I think that let's qualify you as the person who was struggling with infertility, and you want to share that story with our listeners.
Sure. Yeah. So to break it down into one word, it freaking sucked. Right. It was awful.
That's 2 words, by the way.
2 words, freaking sucked. It was awful. I got married later in life and I thought you have sex, you get pregnant. That's what I was taught my whole life. And that's not the case. And so I thought, we would get married and it would be fairly easy. I was healthy. I was already in health and wellness and nutrition. And, I worked out and I thought it'd be super easy. And I learned very quickly that it is not so easy and it does not work like that. And so I was on an emotional roller coaster every month that I got my period, thinking like, what am I doing wrong? I don't understand. I'm doing it. Why is this not working? And so that led me down a rabbit hole of figuring out why my body wasn't working the way that I was told it should. And I'm a researcher at heart. And so I just started researching and trying to figure out. And that was kind of how I dealt with the emotional piece of it, of being frustrated. I was like, what can I do? Like, I'm super type A, like a lot of people I'm sure are, and I wanted to do something. And so that kind of led me, first we went the medical routes. I thought something's wrong. I'm going to go to my doctor because, again, we're taught your doctor has the answers. They can help me. Well, I learned very quickly as well that they wanted to pigeonhole me into you're 36 years old, so you need to do a medical procedure. You're kind of past the prime of fixing this naturally. You need to do an IUI. Or if that doesn't work, we'll put you on, you'll do an IVF. That was pretty cut and dry.
Can you qualify what those things are for?
Sure. So IUI is an intrauterine insemination, where they actually take your partner's sperm and put it directly into your uterus right next to your eggs. So it has a more likely chance of fertilizing. They don't mess with it going through like the reproductive tract and getting it up there. They put it up there. And so the success rate of an IUI is about 10% for women under 35. So I'm 36 years old. That probably had about a 5% success rate. Why the hell would I do that? Okay, that's one. And then IVF is in vitro fertilization, where they actually take the sperm and the egg and they fertilize it outside of the woman's womb, and then they implant an embryo into her uterus in the hopes that it will implant and will develop into a baby. So again, it's kind of like meeting those two together, making it easier for that baby to form and then the embryo to implant. But again, women after 35, it goes way down. I think it's about maybe 20%. Don't quote me on that, but it's around that. So again, not great odds, for a $20,000 procedure for one cycle. So
it's 20,000 a shot here.
20,000 for an IVF cycle, estimated. Some places you might find it for 15, some places will be 25, and this is in the US. If you go overseas, it could be cheaper, but there's risks for that as well. So basically you're telling me that we're looking, if it's a 1 in 10 chance on the first round, that could, if you hit it on the 10, let's say you took 10 times, that's going to cost you somewhere around $250,000, and you only get one shot a month. So let's say you miss it, something goes sideways. So over the course of the year, you're going to spend $250,000 to get one fertilized egg. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to bring that to term. Exactly.
And then if you go the other right with the in vitro, you got a 1 in 5 chance of doing that. And of course, these odds I guess every year that you're older start to diminish exponentially. Would that be true?
Yes, exactly.
So that's a very expensive and risky component. What was it like when you got that what happened when you're in there? It's not working out. You're married. You want to have kids. They're telling you this numbers, right? Like, what was that like for you?
Super frustrating, because I didn't want to believe that. I didn't want to hear that. And in the back of my head and in my gut, I was like, wait a minute, there's nothing medically wrong with me. So I was diagnosed with unexplained infertility, which is basically saying they don't know why you're not getting pregnant. There is a
unexplained.
reason.
They don't know why. That we don't know, like the unexplained infertility. That's just an interesting topic, right?
It's an actual diagnosis, and I'm like, okay, that's ridiculous, but okay. Sounds
very political.
Yeah, for real. Yeah. So they, and that's when I was like, wait a minute, there's nothing medically wrong with me. So I don't understand why I need to do a medical procedure, only because my one thing was I was 36. That was it. I was completely healthy. My weight was normal. Everything else was healthy. So yeah.
Whoa. So here's the thing, like the part that I'm a little suspicious of when people are kind of given this is like, well, we don't know why you're not pregnant, but guess what? You can come to the baby casino and start loading up 20,000 on the blackjack table and hopefully you hit it. Like
Exactly.
your odds in a casino are way better.
Exactly. It's ridiculous. And it's so crazy too when I talk to somebody and they tell me, I can't get pregnant. I'm just going to do IVF. Like that's a guarantee. I'm like, no, you don't understand. That is not a guarantee. And you might as well take your bag of money and flush it down the toilet, because most people it's not going to work, and definitely not on the first try.
Yeah, that seems like that's the equivalent of lighting cigars with $1,000 bills. Forget $100 bills. I mean,
Right.
that just seems so. Okay, so you're in this thing. You're super frustrated. They've given you the unexplained infertility diagnosis, and there's I in my personal circle, and I'm relatively ignorant on this, I know at least a dozen women who are in my friendosphere, I'll call it, who've had similar diagnoses.
Mm-hmm.
And it's devastating.
Mm.
But somehow you said, no. Well,
Yep.
what made you say, hang on a minute here? Like, I'm going at this myself. What happened there?
Yep. So I walked out of that office and I said, I don't think so. I'm not taking that answer.
Love it. I love that.
My type A personality said, okay, I just started researching. Yep. Researching. I was like, okay, there's got to be something I can do to optimize my fertility. There's a reason I'm not getting pregnant. So let me see if I can figure out what that is on my own. So that's exactly what I did. I dove into that research and I realized that there's a difference between eating healthy, which is what I was doing. I was a personal trainer. I was eating healthy, and eating for fertility, which is two different things. So, and we can dive into that a little bit more, what that means, but I really overhauled my diet and looked at what can I do to optimize my nutrition for fertility. And so that was one piece of it. The next piece was I was exercising way too much. I thought I was healthy. I was super thin. I equated being thin with being healthy because I was a trainer. That's what we're taught.
Correct.
That is not what you want for fertility. You do not want to be super thin with no body weight, working out all the time. Not good. So I adjusted that. Yep.
This is a big topic because my original background was in the bodybuilding world. And of course, now during that, the fitness figure in all the different categories that now that came out have put tremendous amount of pressure on young women, particularly. Let's start there. So if you walk into any store, you were going to see the magazines with some girl with fake boobs, great abs, in low double digit or single digit things, many of which have already lost their cycle because of the low body fat level, because a woman needs a certain amount of fat to be. And then, of course, when they're interrupting this early in their careers, when they're generally, like, women usually, if you look at the fitness world, and I'm going to just give a little background, people, the women who tend to get the leanest or more successful in this are usually on the older side as their estrogen levels drop. When they get in that 35 and over, that's when they kind of get the look that's successful. And as girls try to do this early on, not only do they struggle getting there, but then it becomes a disaster afterwards. They have a hard time managing their weight. My old coach, Scott Abel, talked about, he was the first guy to identify metabolic damage and the dysfunction about this. And then, of course, there's the whole psychological about value and worth, and am I sexy, and am I attractive, and can I compete with these other people, and now we've got social media on top of that. So every person is comparing themselves with, I call it the Kardashian construct. It's kind of like the Hollywood. You put this kind of face on the back, but you go behind the city walls, and it's just like boards and stuff. It's not really a house there, and it's kind of like that in social media.
Yes.
What did you learn about the difference in diet to what I would say a cosmetic idea, which is really what you're looking at from a fitness perspective, versus a fertility ideal? What was the differences that you discovered?
So most people think that eating healthy is eating lots of salads, eating grilled chicken, very few calories, calories in, calories out. We want to eat fewer calories. We want to work out harder. They think fat is bad. And it's really the opposite for fertility. You want to be eating a good amount of food. You want high quality food. I even go into cycle syncing, which we'll talk about in a minute. You want good quality fats with every meal. So for me, somebody who's trying to be thin and healthy, when they told me when I realized I needed to eat more fat, I was like, I don't want to eat more fat. Are you crazy? I'm going to get fat. But that's exactly what you need for a fertility, to optimize your fertility. You need those healthy fats. Fat controls so many systems in the body. It's what fuels the baby's brain. Once you get pregnant, it fuels your brain. It fuels many of your hormones. So definitely higher fat, lower carbs. And protein is another one. Protein, you need to eat a good amount of protein, not too much, but not too little. I feel like a lot of times, especially with veganism is so popular these days, and people are afraid to eat animal fat, but really for fertility, you need animal protein for iron. You need the connective tissues, you need the collagen, all of that. So definitely eating a more balanced, more clean, high fat, low carb, medium amount of protein.
So I want you to expand on that. So if you were looking at generally, say, the macros that you were following, which would become common around the fitness stuff versus what you would do for fertility, what would you say the quick breakdown on that, the easy breakdown?
I don't teach focusing on macros. I teach something called a magic plate, where you don't have to count macros. You don't have to count calories. You split your plate into thirds, and you do a third protein, you do a third vegetable, you do a third slow burning carb or grain, and 1 to 2 tablespoons of a healthy fat. So I would say that breakdown is probably about, I would say 50% protein, 30, 20, something like that. And paying attention to obviously whole foods, clean, organics, those types of things.
Right. So for people, that doesn't mean that you have Kentucky Fried Chicken on one side, a fried broccoli on the other one, and French fries.
No.
What type of fats? Because my business partner has been on a ketogenic diet for a very long time, and he's very versed in the different types of fats. And I've been on a plant-based diet for 20 years. He's been on keto for 26. And then I've learned about certain particular fats that I need to be mindful on my dietary stuff. What are the type of fats that women need to be looking at? Because I think that's one of the big areas that people are really struggling with to get how much fat, what type of fat, where do I get that fat, all that sort of stuff, because there's lots of fat in people's diets, but it's really bad fat.
Right. Yes. So I recommend 1 to 2 tablespoons per meal. So it's not a ton of fat. It's not, and we can talk about the difference in keto. I think keto is wonderful for men. For women, you have to be very careful with keto. I like to put myself into ketosis through intermittent fasting. We can talk about that. I think that's a great way to do it, but
that might not be right for fertility, right?
It's a fine line. It's a fine line. Fasting overnight 13 to 15 hours is perfect. You need to eat breakfast within an hour of waking because you need to give your body food to make hormones that it needs. So, and again, the woman's body goes through a 28-day cycle where the man's is a 24-hour cycle. So you really need to focus on cycle syncing those foods and calories and cycle syncing the intermittent fasting. That's a whole nother topic we can dive into. But to go back to your point on fats, so I recommend seed cycling. So getting some fats through seeds, getting avocados, fatty fish is another one. I use an acronym called SMASH: salmon, anchovies, mackerel, herring, and sardines. I think I said that backwards, but you got the gist of the fish. And oils, I do olive oil or coconut oil, olives, those types of things. And again, it's just 1 to 2 tablespoons per meal. It's not, a whole ton of fat, and it's not a huge piece of animal fat. That's another thing. I think a lot of people on keto think they need to be eating steaks and bacon and like all this really heavy animal fats. And it's really not the case with fertility.
And that's interesting because you're basically, what, if I heard you correctly, you're dealing with like almost like unrefined regular fats that haven't really been denatured through cooking or rancid, the kind of things. So
Exactly.
I think that's important. And then the other thing is you're not just saying, oh, I need my 3 tablespoons of whatever oil today. You're having a little bit of fat with each one of those meals throughout the day that you're in your eating cycle, correct?
Exactly. Yes.
And then what about eating frequently? Because I notice one of the things that I've noticed with intermittent fasters is that men seem to do well by fasting in the morning, and women seem to do better by fasting later in the day, as opposed to, or like they need to stabilize themselves early in the day. Would that be correct? And then how many frequency of meals?
For sure. So I recommend, like I was saying, I try to have my clients do about a 13 to 15 hour overnight. So that's maybe you stop eating around 6 or 7, and then you don't eat again until 10 or 11. Sometimes that gets into a couple hours after you wake up. Depending on when you wake up, you can play with those numbers. So I recommend that overnight. And then about every 4 to 5 hours, I say you should have something to eat. Having breakfast as your biggest meal. I'm a huge fan of smoothies because you can get a lot of nutrients into a little amount of liquid. Your body can assimilate it a lot easier because it's already broken down. So I say have a really good heavy veggie smoothie with a little bit of fruit, some fat and protein in the morning, and then have about a medium lunch if you need to have lunch. Sometimes my ladies, they say that smoothie, I'm full, until mid-afternoon, and then I'll have a little bit of a lunch, and then having kind of a supplementation dinner, just as a small dinner with some protein with the magic plates. And trying not, I don't encourage snacking because I don't want, every time you eat, your body's going to release that insulin. You're going to go in that blood sugar roller coaster, which is not so good for fertility. So I really try to say, if you're not hungry, then let's go about 4 to 5 hours. And that's the other piece that I talk about a lot, is really tapping into, am I actually hungry? And knowing what your body's telling you, listening to those hunger cues. If your stomach is growling, if you're lightheaded, if you're like woozy, then you're probably actually hungry. But a lot of times we're just eating because we're home. It's COVID. We're bored. We're stressed out. We're whatever it is. So really listening to your body and eating based on your actual hunger versus the other things I mentioned.
Yeah, always. Every time I hear those type of things, I always think of the movie "The Devil Wears Prada," where the lady's like, "Oh, I eat until I'm almost ready to pass out, and then I have a 1-inch cube of cheese." And oh my God, that's so.
Exactly.
Unfortunately, it's somewhat too accurate. Let's talk about this word that you're using, or this cycle syncing, and this 28-day cycle that women have.
Yes.
That's a big thing because there's a part of the month where where a woman's kind of in their optimal fertility zone, and then there's a part of the month where they're not. And then there's correlations. I've been looking at some of the research, and there's a big movement around this with women right now, is that sometimes of the month they're more motivated to get things done and driving, and other times they're more emotional and things they might feel more food. Explain to an ignorant man like me what the hell cycle syncing is, and how important is it not only just to get this, but I also want to share about sharing this with your partner. Because I think a lot of men want to be supportive, especially if they're trying to get pregnant with their wife. But it's like, you know, we hang out with our guy friends and we're like, you know, what's going on? Like, I don't know. She's kind of crazy. Yeah, dude, get it, man. And that's the extent, right? Like we really want to help, but oftentimes we don't know what to do to support. So if you can explain cycle syncing and then how to to get your partner on board with this.
Sure. So cycle syncing is a functional medicine concept, and it's where a woman will partner her food, fitness, work life, and social life with the 4 phases of her monthly cycle. So she's either giving her body the food and the resources it needs to make hormones, or she's giving her body the food and resources to detox hormones once she goes through her 28-day to 35-day cycle. And so what this does is it creates homeostasis in the body. It makes everything balanced. Your body has all the raw materials it needs to do what it needs to do naturally. And it's working with your hormones instead of against them. So you're almost like you're flowing through your phases and your cycle. And it dramatically impacts so many things, from how pleasant your period is, how high your sex drive is, how you're able to lose weight, how you can get pregnant, how you, optimizing your fertility with fertility signs. It's so many things. Helps you with business, helps you to be a better business person and a leader and a speaker. And I mean, I could go on and on and on. It's just, and this is all data that I've seen from doing this with all my clients throughout the years. This is like case study after case study of implementing this and then seeing it work. So it's truly amazing. And we can dive into the phases too, so people can get some context around that.
Yeah, let's talk about those phases next. I think that would be
sure.
Kind of unpack that a little bit more.
Sure. So the 4 phases. So you start with your menstruation week, and this is the week you're actually bleeding. So this is usually day 1 through 5 of a 28-day cycle. I know some people's cycles are longer or shorter, but this is average. So we're going to talk average. So for day 1 through 5, the day that you're bleeding, your hormones are pretty low. You're shedding an organ, which is your endometrial lining. So your hormones are pretty low. This is the time for, during business, it's all about self-reflection and really looking within, sitting within that feminine energy and tapping into that, calming your central nervous system, giving your body foods like lean protein for the iron, eating some kelp or some algae so you can get iodine, supporting that thyroid, lots of filtered water, lots of warming foods so your blood doesn't become stagnant. You really want it to be flowing nicely. Giving your body extra rest. It's super important during this time to be resting, and exercise. This is the time when it's okay to kind of take it easy, take a step back, do some walking. If you want to do, you can walk throughout the entire cycle. Walking is fine, but low, gentle, slow movements, yoga, Tai Chi, those types of things.
Which is interesting, because if you look historically, if you look back to tribal cultures, oftentimes during the cycle times, the women would just leave the village and kind of go off with themselves and just not deal with day-to-day life. And that's often looked at as a kind of a patriarchal, tyrannical kind of perspective. That's the new common lens that we look at that. But I think there may be another way to look at that, is that about, hey, you know what? You got to just, tribal life was pretty rough,
right?
And a lot of pressure on women and stuff. And all of a sudden they remove themselves from maybe the tribal kind of pressures.
Yeah.
So
they actually called it red tents. All the women who were cycling would go sit in the red tents and just be together and meditate and pray and, just do women stuff. And so we need to get back to that.
Yeah, sounds kind of cool. Sounds like a good way to be hanging out and not having to deal with these non-understanding cave guys who just like, dude, go out and like hunt some deer or something. All right.
So
Cool. So we got through the first
Yep.
5 days or what approximately.
Yes.
And then what else do we got?
The next phase is follicular. So this is day about 6 through 14. This is when your hormones are starting to rise, especially your estrogen and progesterone. And so you can notice that your energy starts to rise. Last month was all about thinking and self-reflection, kind of planning what you want to do. This month is actually sitting down and strategically planning out. So I'll take my whole month during my follicular phase and plan out exactly what I'm going to be doing. My tasks, my business tasks, my workout, my food, everything gets planned in my follicular phase. For my foods, I really want to focus on light, fresh fare. So think salads, raw juices, lots of nutrients. Remember, your follicles are growing. They're about to release an egg. So you want to give them all the support that they need to be able to do that. And this is when it's okay to focus on cold food versus warm food from last week. So colder foods, those salads and raw juices and things. For exercise, this is when it's okay. Your energy's rising. So let's intensify the exercise. You can do some of those harder workouts, those group classes, the spin, the kickboxing, those types of things. You'll also notice that you want to be more social as you head into the next week, which we'll talk about in a minute. But your hormones give you energy. They also make you outgoing. You want to be social. You want to be in those group classes. The week before, the group class would have been too loud and too bright, too many senses happening. This week, it's all, you love it. You're killing it in your group classes. So that's follicular phase. Then as we move into ovulation, so this is when you are on fire. This is rosy cheeks. This is like you're the most outgoing, the most charismatic, the most on top of your game. You're articulate. You can like nail a presentation, an interview, a speech, whatever it is, you're on fire. This is when your hormones are at their peak. So your energy is at its peak. You can do that hard class. This is if you're running a marathon, if you're trying to beat a personal record, your PR, your personal best, this is the time to do it during ovulation. So day 15.
Your hormones would be really peaking here, I would assume.
Hormones are at their peak. So
and this is from day what to what?
15 through 17.
15. So very short window here.
Yes. Very
so you
short.
got about 3 days where you're just like on fire.
Yes.
Right.
And so we talked business, we talked food. So for food, this is when you want to really be supporting that egg that's popping out of that follicle. So think antioxidant rich foods, anything that's going to help you protect that egg from free radicals, from oxidative stress. So think berries and leafy greens, and the darker, the better. So think radishes and blueberries, raspberries, kale, bok choy, even some citrus fruits with the vitamin C content, because vitamin C helps your body to make progesterone. So like your oranges and your papayas and your pineapple, that kind of thing. So that's the food. We talked about business, exercise. So that's ovulation. So now moving into luteal. So luteal is day 18 through 28. It's the 2 weeks before your period starts again, if you're not pregnant. And so this is when your hormones are starting to dip. So this is when and this is really broken into 2 weeks. So the first week, 2 weeks before your period, you still might be coming off the high of ovulation. So your hormones are just starting to dip. You might still feel the energy. You might, still feel up to doing the hard workouts. And this is when you want to listen to your body. If you still feel up to it, I say do another week of hard workouts. You're not going to hurt anything. For food, it's all about detox. You want to help your body to naturally detox. You want to do things that are going to support your liver and really support that detoxification of hormones, because you do not want to recycle the hormones. If you're not detoxing appropriately, if your liver's kind of sluggish and you're not doing that, then you can start to experience symptoms next week in your PMS week. So you really want to make sure that liver's working appropriately. So this will be foods like onion, garlic, fennel, any high fiber foods. If you're a grain eater, you can do a little bit of quinoa, buckwheat, brown rice, and then liver supporting, even liver supporting herbs. So dandelion root tea, a turmeric, a milk thistle, those types of things. And then, so we talked about exercise in the first week. The second week, your exercise is going to come back down and it's going to be more low, slow, gentle exercise. This is the time when I find a lot of women want to keep pushing because for 2 weeks, they've been working out hard. And so they'll say, I don't really feel like working out, but I'm going to do it anyways because I don't want to gain weight and I'm going to push. If you do that, you're going to do the opposite of what you're trying to accomplish in the gym. You're not going to have the muscle gains that you could have the other 2 weeks. You're going to tax your adrenal glands. Your central nervous system is going to be lit up and on fire, and you're going to produce cortisol. So you're going to stress out your body, and it can cause all the symptoms of, weight gain and inflammation and all of these things that we don't want and that we're trying to fix with exercise. So just listen to your body that last week. It's okay to take a break. You can do more slow, gentle, restorative movements. What I find is so cool too is when I work with people like me who used to working out really hard, and I give them permission to take a break, they all of a sudden they're like, I'm losing weight and I'm working out less. Holy crap. How's this happening? So it all comes down to that. And then for business, this is the time for your right and your left brain are really aligned. So you can focus on big projects, big tasks. I always tell people, if you have a big project you need to get done, do it in that last week before your period, because you'll have the mind energy and the focus to be able to do that. You'll also notice, this is really cool fact, you'll notice things more than you did any other week. So especially if your house needs to be organized, if your fridge needs to be cleaned out, if your car is messy, you might be driving around in that messy car all 3 weeks and not even notice it. And then all of a sudden it's like every speck of dirt. How did this happen? Why does this car look like this? It's because that right and left brain are so aligned and you're noticing everything. So take some time to do some deep cleaning, a big project, some organization.
This is so great because you can also observe, like as a guy who doesn't go through this, what you've just described to me would appear to be an observable mystery for guys. And they'd say, well, sometimes she's on point, that the car is clean, house is good, all the next thing it's a disaster and things are all over the place. And 1 week she's working out hard, the next week she doesn't want to do it, and we're just like, what the hell? I can't seem to figure out who I'm dealing with on any given week. Right. And then that causes oftentimes tension between the two sexes. And of course that makes it even harder. And then everybody kind of goes off and feels that, hey, well, what am I doing? All this stuff. How do you bring this awareness, or invite women to bring this awareness to their partners so their partners can be supportive of this process?
And now for a Bioptimizers fixed digestion tip, rapid cheat meal relief. Research shows that cheat meals can actually be an effective way to boost your metabolism. One key weight loss hormone, leptin, can be increased by up to 30% following a cheat meal. The challenge with the cheat meals is that all those extra calories and lower food quality can be hard to digest, which means you could be totally sidelined with a food coma after big cheat meals. The solution is to take strong digestive enzymes like masszymes, which will help rapidly digest and break down the extra food. 3 to 5 capsules before or right after your cheat meal can make a huge difference in how you feel following the cheat meal. If it's a cheat day with multiple large meals, you might want to go up to 10 capsules or higher to help you power through all that food. To save 10% on masszymes, go to masszymes.com. That's masszymes.com and enter the code CHEAT10 at checkout.
For sure. So the first thing is know that it's hormones, and know that your wife or girlfriend is not crazy. It is her hormones, and it's completely natural and biological process. So that's the first thing, knowing that. The second thing is just asking your wife or girlfriend or partner, how can I support you? What do you need from me this week? How can I help you? It's all about that communication and asking that question, because we'll tell you like, hey, I'm on my period. I really don't feel up, that great. Let me take a break today. Let me have a red tent day and lie on the couch and watch a movie. And it's just that communication and being supportive of your partner that way. And I think that's a lot of it too, where couples don't talk to each other like they need to. It's okay to say, hey, what's going on, babe? How can I help you? That's all it takes.
It's so great. And I think a lot of women would be surprised of how many men want to help, but don't know how to ask, don't know how to support. They don't know what's going. So they just kind of shut down and kind of slink off out of the way. She's on the warpath.
Right.
That kind of thing.
Right.
This is great. Now, I guess the next question is, okay, well, now we want to naturally inseminate the woman. When's the time here that we're looking at this point? Is there any tips around that particular process that we need to address?
Yes. So I recommend all of my women to track their cycle so that they can actually know where they're at in their cycle and they can be cycle syncing. And then you want to look for certain signs of fertility. Not to get too graphic, but the best way to know your fertility signs is to look for cervical mucus. And so that will go through a process. And usually I recommend day 9 through 18, you start to have sex every other day, watching that cervical mucus, because semen can live in the reproductive tract for up to 5 days, but an egg will only live 12 to 24 hours. So as soon as that egg comes out, we need to have semen in there to meet it. So having sex day 9 through 18 kind of takes that guesswork out of it every other day, not every day, because every day will diminish the supply and make the weak guys come out. We want our key, strongest players to be coming out.
So I have to downregulate my sex life?
Yes. If you're trying to make a baby. If you're not trying to make a baby, it's a free-for-all.
Got it. All right. That's cool.
Yes.
Wow. So these are the things I didn't know. So what else do I need to know about that process? Anything else?
Yeah. Just again, paying attention to those fertile signs. I like to do 3 things. So tracking your cervical mucus, taking your BBT, which is your basal body temperature. This will tell you if you've actually ovulated. So if you see 3 high temperatures in a row, that shows you your progesterone is releasing appropriately, which your progesterone is the hormone that comes out of the follicle that the egg is released from. It's called the corpus luteum. So right after you ovulate, that follicle actually turns into another organ or gland, which is really cool. Only a woman's body could take an organ and change into a different organ. So that's super. I love it. But so that corpus luteum, the BBT, will show you if that progesterone is coming out of that follicle, which means you actually ovulated. And so those are really the 2 signs that I look for to be able to track. And it's just good process to get into tracking your cycle in general. You want to know what your period is doing. You want to know your period is your body's report card. So if it's giving you a lot of symptoms, if you have crazy PMS and, terrible mood swings and even some depression, some body dysmorphia syndrome, all of that, that can actually be signs of thyroid imbalance. But this is your body's way of telling you, hey, listen to me, something's up here. You need to pay attention. So definitely tracking that cycle and knowing when your fertile window is, knowing what your cycle is doing.
Super powerful information. Of course, understanding this also, if you're out in the world and doing what so many women are today, like just understanding of when's the go time, when's the connected time, when's the, pump the brakes time, I think is really both on fitness and in a career, because women are trying to do fitness, careers, relationship and family life. And I don't, it's the intensity of pressure, I think, today on women.
Yep. And another thing to mention really fast is, even if you're not trying to get pregnant, It's very important for you to still track your cycle and to track your ovulation. The more ovulatory cycles that you have between now and menopause, the more likely that you're going to not get dementia, Alzheimer's, heart disease, all of these different conditions. Your ovulation is like the key indicator of health. And so you want to have as many of those cycles as you can. So if you don't even know if you're ovulating or not, that's a problem. You need to know.
It's a really big thing. There's an old saying that eggs are expensive and sperm is cheap.
Right. Right.
So, let's take this next piece just in regards to this, because stress management, not being fertile for both men and women, is often a huge psychological aspect. And I've had friends that have gone through this process, and the first stage is usually the wanting to blame the other partner. And then they go through all the testing, and then there's all that sort of stuff. And it's like, oh, it's me. And it's like all this stuff starts to happen. How do you manage the stress of, the self-definition or the ideal self, or the not feeling enough, which I think is a very common element, is particularly when it comes to having children? What have you learned working with so many women?
Yeah. So I'm a big fan of a stress management plan. Whether you're trying to get pregnant or not, you need to have a stress management plan in place. And this is more than just relax. I hate when people say that. It's not about just relaxing. It's actually managing your stress as best as possible.
Do you just take the phone and throw it away?
Yes. Yes. Putting some boundaries around your phone is a very good first step, whether you're a man or female, a man or a woman. But so yes, having that stress management plan in place. And what that looks like is anything that's not serving you, look at your schedule. Anything in your life that's not serving you, I recommend either putting it on the back burner during the season of your life when you're trying to get pregnant. Your main focus right now should be making a baby, and then things that are non-negotiables, your job, your marriage, your religion, things like that. But looking at what's in your life, if it's not serving you, putting it on the back burner until you're through this season of life, or even I would argue taking it out of your life. If it's not serving you, why is it in your life in the first place? But then I also joke, you can't get rid of your mother-in-law, or you probably can't quit your job tomorrow. So putting that on the back burner until you have a chance to get through this season in life. And then also, you can't control a lot of things that happen. You can't control if your boss yells at you, if you get into a fight with your friend or whatever it is, but you can control how you react to that. So really learning how to have some boundaries in place, how to react to certain situations so that you kind of have a go-to, especially when you're trying to get pregnant. A key scenario, one scenario I see a lot is, it's a holiday, or it's, something where you're going to be around a lot of people and your cousin Mary's pregnant and you're not. You're like, damn it, I hate Mary. What the hell? You can't control that, but you can control how you react, and you can control having kind of, a scenario that you're going to do when you're in front of Mary. You're going to, if she asks you if you're trying to get pregnant, then you have something that's kind of a blanketed statement. We're not talking about that today, kind of thing. So stress management, having that plan in place. Also, I find having systems in place is really important. If you have a system for dinner, for your meals, if you have a system for your morning routine, your evening routine, that'll allow things to not feel so out of control and so overwhelming. So you'll have a plan, you kind of know what you need to do, you follow that plan, and it's a lot less overwhelming when you have so much on your plate, especially around fertility, and you're trying to do so many things.
Really good information on that. Now, to put this whole piece together, cycle syncing, tracking this stuff, getting your dietary stuff, adjusting your exercise, learning the, integration with your career and all this sort of stuff. Realistically, how long does it take someone to kind of get all this together if they've been struggling with fertility? And is there variances between the ages?
And it depends on, well, there's two things there. So it depends on where you're starting from. If you are brand new and you've never eaten a piece of kale in your life, or you've never gone to the gym, then you are going to be starting from a way different place than somebody like me or you who's been in this industry and who's just trying to tweak and up level. So
Right.
first I would ask yourself, where are you starting from? Get really realistic with yourself, and then start from where you are. If it's brand new, I say pick one thing and try to make a positive change tomorrow. It's all about progress over perfection, making 1% improvement from what you're doing today to what you're going to do tomorrow. And then do that again and again until you have all these new habits in place. If you're somebody like me or you who's in fitness, who knows this stuff and just wants to up level, think, where in my life can I up level? Where, maybe my breakfast needs to be tweaked a little bit. Maybe I need to add a meditation practice or something that will allow me to up level. I find no matter how healthy I am, no matter how much I know, I'm always learning something new. I'm always adding something new to my repertoire of healthy habits. So really looking at where you're starting, but start small, give yourself grace. This is not a contest. You're not going to get a medal if you do it right. So just starting and doing something is the best you can do. And that's perfect.
So just onset of that, like, would you say realistically for a lot of people, it's going to be somewhere in like maybe 3 months to a year to kind of get this thing dialed in, or what, any idea?
Yeah, no, it would not take that long. I see women, especially if you have, well, first let me say, if you have some sort of guide, like a coach that can fast track that. But most people, if you try to do it on your own, I would say 30 to 60 days. It takes 21 days to make a new habit. So, if you have a lot of new habits you want to make, you can do those coincide with each other, or you can say, I'm going to focus on one thing. Maybe I'm going to get my food dialed in. That's going to take me 21 days and then do it again.
Yeah. Okay. That's great. Any other items that you have found that helps us? Like, is it like, I don't know, any of the biohacking kind of ideologies, like whether it's blue lights at night or infrared saunas or cold therapy? Like, is there anything that kind of also can really fire up and optimize a woman's hormones, or things they need to avoid from those standpoints?
Yeah, so many different things. A couple of things that I really like is, one, getting a sleep routine in place and doing some sun gazing and moon gazing. And so what this does is it'll set your natural circadian rhythm and allow your body to start making at night it's sleep hormones, in the morning it's wake up hormones. It really kind of sets that clock and helps to optimize, again, that fertility. It helps the cycle syncing work better, all of that. So that's one thing I really like. I do love an infrared sauna. I'm actually in the market for one right now. Supplements are another thing we haven't really talked about, and I really don't want to dive into specifics on supplements, but I feel all of my clients that I've worked with, or most of them anyways, we start with food first and get a whole food balanced diet. There's always going to be holes. And so I like to fill in the holes with a really good supplement routine and making sure the supplements are right for you. So always work, caveat, always work with a healthcare practitioner to dial in these supplements. Don't just order something because you hear about it on, you see it on Amazon or Facebook, whatever. But there's definitely a place for supplements depending on what you're struggling with. And that's where it gets into with, when you're working with a coach or a practitioner, they'll look at your specific medical history and your diagnoses and say, this is what I recommend for you. It's almost like you're biohacking your hormones through supplements.
Yeah. So let's talk about your work as a coach and the people that come to see you. How do that, so someone's listening to this podcast right now. They're like, oh my God, this sounds amazing. I love what we touched on these topics, but I know there's a lot of nuances. I need help. I need coaching. I need someone to guide me through this. Where do they go? What do they do? And how does that process work for people?
For sure. So they would go to my website, which is coachkela.com. coachkela.com, and Kela is Kela, so coachkela.com. And there you will find tons of resources, a couple for free. I have a cycle syncing quick start guide and a fertility meal plan. So you grab one of those resources, which will then put you into my where I'll see a note pop up and I can schedule a call with you. So then you can schedule a call with me. We jump on the phone. I talk through your specific situation and I show you how, if my programs can help you, how they can do that. And I have a couple different programs I offer. I do one-on-one coaching. I have a group program that just started up, and a couple of things that are different about the way that I work versus some other coaches that might be out there. I start with testing first. I do a very comprehensive at-home dried urine test where we look at your hormones, what they're doing over a 24-hour period, and how your body's metabolizing those hormones. So I'd start with that. And if your partner needs, I also have a way to do at-home semen analysis, so we can touch on that as well. Then I look at those results and analyze them. I look at the data. I have you fill out a very in-depth health questionnaire, and then I put together a customized plan for you based on your medical, your labs, your medical, all of that. So I don't guess. I actually look exactly what your body's doing, and I write a program accordingly. And that program can be delivered through one-on-one coaching or through my group program.
That seems pretty outstanding that you're able to provide that level and depth of services to people. And then I guess the next question, so we're trying to get 100,000 women pregnant here.
Yes.
That's an awesome goal, I think. Is there any items that I didn't touch on, like, what can people expect over that? Because I know you can't make promises and expectations, but maybe you have a couple of stories that you'd like to share for our listeners for inspirational purposes. Because I think those are very, your story is very interesting. I know I had a friend of mine who about 10 years ago when I first, no, maybe it's closer to 15 years ago when I first heard about this, she had actually suffered 6 miscarriages. And she worked with a coach who works with our company now in genetics and epigenetics, and did all this sort of stuff. And then boom, within 6 months, she got pregnant and had 2, ended up having 1. And then a year or so later had another child, and there was no issues it was really dramatic because she were at a rope, like it was probably one of the most dramatic situations. And I was like, wow, this is neat. Maybe having some inspirational stories that you can think of to share.
For sure. Yeah. So I had a client recently. She came to me. She hadn't had her period in 10 years. 10 years. She was 35. Whoa. Her period left her at 25. She'd been on birth control. Then she came off of birth control, never came back. We started cycle syncing. We started on whole food nutrition. She ended up losing about 20 pounds over the course of about 2.5 months. Her period came back within month 1. So we got her period back. She was alive again. She's losing weight, feeling great. Well, then we ended working together. It's a 3-month program. And so she was happy with the results. She loved it. But she didn't stop doing what she had learned. This is what I teach all my clients. This isn't a quick fix. You're going to do this for your life. This is a new lifestyle. So she kept at it, kept doing the program. And in 6 months, she was pregnant at 36 when she didn't think she would ever have a period again. And doctors told her she wasn't going to be able to get pregnant because of that. And she was pregnant. And now she just had that baby about a month ago. And it's so funny because she called me whenever she found out she was pregnant. And she was like, Coach Kela, I'm pregnant. Now what? Like, I never thought this would happen. What am I supposed to do now?
Right.
And I was like, well, I can help you with that. So I gave her some tips on what she needed to eat, how she needed to eat for pregnancy versus fertility and all of that. But yeah, just an amazing story. And I have stories like that all the time. That's one of the best things, and the reason I do this is because I love getting those texts and emails and calls. Like, I'm pregnant. It's amazing. It's truly amazing.
Do you have like a wall of fame with babies' pictures?
Yes. Yes. I had another lady I worked with recently, and her and I have been working together for about 4 weeks. She was on thyroid medicine. She had just gone through an IVF cycle that failed, or she went through a transfer where she had 17 follicles, and I think she got like 10 eggs or something like that. So pretty low numbers. So she's in her next cycle right now. She went back to the doctor to do her, she was being stimulated. They tested her thyroid hormone. The doctor said he couldn't believe it, that she could even come off of her thyroid medicine, that her thyroid had completely leveled out, was the best he had ever seen it. She had 36 follicles instead of just 17. And her doctor was like, whatever you're doing, you need to keep doing it, because it is truly, I mean, your labs are completely different. Like, what the hell are you doing? And it was all just changing her diet around, adding in seed cycling, helping her with her stress management, just all of these things we've talked about here. I mean, it can happen so fast. Within 30 days of working together, you can see amazing results.
I think that's a really important thing to finish up with. And that is, our bodies are designed to work the way they're. We have millions of years of evolution built into the cells of everything in this memory. And oftentimes it's not, there's something wrong with you. It's that our lifestyles have changed so much in the last 80 years, even in the last 30 or 40 years, and even in the last 10 with technology and phones and all this stuff, is that we're living very differently than our ancestors did. And we're eating very differently, and our lifestyles are differently, and our expectations are different. And when you reintroduce these type of things back into the body just wants to work. It wants to operate the way it is. And if it's not, oftentimes you're just not producing the right elements. And seems like you have a really awesome way of helping women in this. And this is an amazing service. Can you share with everyone here today, because I know there's going to be some ladies like, I need this now. Wait, why? Shut up and let her tell us, where do they reach you? You've got a bunch of social media handles.
Yes.
Give us the whole 9 yards, shamelessly.
Yes.
Self-promote here, because I'm very passionate about this topic. I know there's a lot of women that suffer in silence, and a lot of couples. Maybe there's guys that are hearing this, of a couple that's struggling, of a woman that's struggling, of a family. Look, get this message out to you. Kela, let us have it. Where can they find you?
Yes. So definitely my website is a great place. Like I said, you can get my free gift, which will send me an email, and I will reach out to you to book a call. You can also find me all over social. So I'm on Instagram is my favorite playground, and that is Kela Health Coach. I'm also on Facebook, Instagram's Kela _Health Coach. Facebook is Kela Health Coach. I have a Facebook group called Hormone Puzzle. I have a podcast myself called the Hormone Puzzle Podcast, where you can hear me interview amazing guests all over the world. So yeah, those are probably the best places to find me. I also have a couple of books that I've written. They're on Amazon, called The Hormone Puzzle, Solving Infertility, and the Complete Hormone Puzzle Cookbook.
Kela, you are incredible woman doing incredible work in the world. And thank you so much for joining us today.
Yes.
On the Awesome Health Podcast.
One other thing I forgot to mention before we end here is I also work with other practitioners and teach them how to become fertility coaches through my Fertility Coach Practitioner Program. So you can find that on the website as well.
You're amazing. This is incredible. Super exciting. Thank you so much for joining us today on the Awesome Health Podcast. For all our listeners out there, make sure that you check out Kela's stuff. All the information is here on the show notes. And you know what? Don't let the medical industry dictate your fertility. Oftentimes, with some few changes that you can, get the right help that you need, demystify things, get back your confidence, and of course, start making more babies. Because you know what? There is no greater thing in the world than to be able to produce another human, to have this wonderful thing called the human experience. Thank you so much for your service to the world. And thank you to all our listeners for listening to this podcast. Give your thumbs up, share it for people that might want to listen to it. We thank you so much for joining us, and I hope you enjoyed this incredible episode. Take care.
And now for a Bioptimizers fixed digestion tip: how to get away with eating sugar. Hey, look, sugar is normally one of the worst things for you. But let's be honest. I mean, we all cheat from time to time. And here's a little trick that will ensure your body benefits from the sugar. Now, before you eat or drink anything sweet, take 5 to 8 capsules of P3OM. The patented strain in the formula devours sugar so fast, it literally doubles in the body every 20 minutes in the presence of sugar. That doesn't mean that you can or you should eat a bunch of sugar or sit around all day doing that. But on the days that you do cheat or you go after one of those maybe meals that you wouldn't normally do, this ensures that you get something in your gut that eats the sugar. And it's not going to feed the bad guys or spike your blood glucose nearly as much. So to learn more about P3OM and its sugar-devouring and protein-digesting properties and how it can transform your gut and metabolism, go to www.bioptimizers.com.
Thank you for listening to the Bioptimizers Awesome Health Podcast. You can find more information at bioptimizers.com.